Oh, we're on, right? So, it's a Frankenstein. Well, that's overplayed, right? I need to come with something cheesy. Goddamn quarantine has sucked all my creative juices out. I don't know if I can begin here. Well, I've got an idea. Have a close-up of this. It reads Happyland, right? So realistically, it should transport me to a happy place, right? Let's give it a try, shall we? Goddamn, who needs coffee when you can sniff it in the morning? So let's start with the presentation as always. Happyland Cuir Cafe comes in this lovely pouch like Mancera bottles and Montals, which is, I think, very travel appropriate. It has a very minimalistic bottle that has a neat sticker here of a guy rocking a handlebar and a fedora. It says Cuir Cafe. Pretty minimalistic bottle, simple, and you got that yellow juice. The cap is plastic, the atomizers plastic. I'm the biggest fan of the lid, but the atomizer shoots fine, a decent mist. Look at that distribution of juice. And you've got a batch number here, I think, which has number 2. If that means the production, then I'm very lucky, because this is the second of its very kind. Now, according to Fragrantica, this was released back in 2019, and the nose behind this was E.J. Wells. This has top notes of coffee and saffron, middle notes of leather and suede, and base notes of amber and woodsy notes. That's the presentation done with. Hi, there is the Frankenstein again. If that cheesy introduction has piqued your interest, you might want to cozy up and listen to what I have to say about this beauty. Let me spray this before I talk about the notes firsthand. If I get all the notes that I've talked about, I've actually got fragrances all over me. My scent of the day is Bleu de Chanel Eau de Parfum, if anyone's interested. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spray it on a paper and see what it gives me. I love that atomizer, by the way. Look at the range it shoots. You guys gotta forgive me if I rant on this little review, because caffeine's in the air, for God's sake. God, this is so beautiful. So I don't actually get every notes that have been listed there. What I get from it is leather, coffee, and a bit of sweetness, I think, which amber is responsible for, I believe. That's all I get. I don't get the saffron, I don't get the other stuff. I think suede and leather, they're trying to give off the vibe that it's a polished leather, and I think I get that as well, polished leather. Now, what this fragrance evokes in my mind, let's go on with the imagery that it invokes. When I smell this, I legit feel like I'm walking into a cafe and I'm greeted with that warm, cozy smell of roasted coffee beans. That's what I'm left with. And predominantly through the life of this fragrance, this stays pretty linear on me. It's the beautiful dancing of leather and the coffee note that keeps you tuned in. The symposium of these two notes is just absolutely harmonious to me. And when you're talking about notes, dark, challenging notes like leather and coffee, you might be thinking that those are two dark notes. How do they put them together? But this is where E.J. Wells has actually proved his craftsmanship, in my opinion, because these two notes are blended to perfection, because they have this ozony, airy vibe that do not choke you out. Instead, the coffee in it just keeps myself personally coming back to it. It feels like you're beside a hot beverage of coffee, let it be latte, let it be macchiato, let it be a vanilla latte, like any hot beverages, anything on the lines of coffee. You have a coffee by your side and you're just taking that all that goodness of that coffee through your nostrils. This is quite evocative of those emotions in me. And this actually makes me, it has depth. I would say it has depth because it actually makes me come back to it over and over and over again, and every waft is an absolute delight. This is because I'm a huge coffee lover. Now, I don't claim to be a coffee connoisseur. I am a person who loves the taste and smell of coffee, and since this is something that I've smelled, this is a fragrance that by far, in my personal opinion, that everything that I've tried so far gives me the most authentic coffee note. Okay, so being a coffee lover, it's actually natural for me that this would be something more of my cup of tea. And this is also featured on my 10 for life list. If you haven't watched it, I'll drop the link below. Go watch it and see what I had to say about this. Every fragrances that featured there, in my world, is a 10 out of 10. Now I'll be giving you an objective rating, but for me, before I even go to those rating and address those elements and factors, this is a 10 in my world. Now the imagery that it gives me is, like I said before, when you walk in, let's start with the name first. Cuir Cafe. Effectively, the Cuir means leather, and cafe, you know what a cafe is. I see that lately the crossover theme cafe shops are getting quite popular. If there was ever a thing where you have a leather shop and on the side you have got a little cafe opened up, this fragrance, the smell that this fragrance has, that shop, that leather shop will have the exact same smell, because it's a beautiful blend of that coffee note and that leather note. And the cons that I think that acts against this would be someone, if someone who doesn't love the note of coffee, I would strictly advise stay clear of it. Coffee and leather, if you don't like them, stay clear of it. And I think E.J. Wells is an absolutely genius perfumer, not because of how he has blended these two challenging elements, but also because he's actually, in my opinion, cashed on in the success story of Tuscan leather. Because if I think Tuscan leather came up with a flanker of their own, which is called ombre leather. In my opinion, this is by far the greatest version of a flanker. This is like improvising on the highest category for me. Now, I'm not saying this is an outright clone of Tuscan leather. This has got Tuscan leather with a tweak of that coffee note. What E.J. Wells has done is gave the Tuscan leather DNA a gourmand touch. What I'm trying to say is, if Tom Ford released this very fragrance, it would have fetched a huge price tag. But I got this 50 ml bottle for only $50, which is an absolute steal. So another con that may work against this perfume is its name. It's an indie brand, but some people are captured by the brand name. But if you can overlook the brand name and the reputation of the house, it's an indie brand, like what you can and the presentation is not the greatest. But with indie brands, what happens is if they get the appropriate support over time, they produce quality presentation as well. If you can look past those two factors, and if you're a coffee and leather lover, this is an absolute hit for you. Now let's talk about performance. On my skin, this performs for the longevity is around 6 to 7 hours on average, and it projects for 2 hours, and that is actually the range that it projects for is like arm's length for 2 hours, which is pretty solid in my world. And I think this is quite the scent profile is quite playful. You can wear it casual. You can wear it for casual dates, first dates, or if your woman loves the note of coffee and likes you rocking the biker jackets, those leather polished biker jackets. This is perfect for those occasions as well. For age group, I think this is going to appeal to people from the age group of 22 to 35, and if anyone's above that who has more chivalry as an attribute in them, they can rock it definitely, because this gives off that playful vibe with that coffee note. And this is a very fun fragrance, and most fragrances from Happyland fragrances actually make you happy. Sometimes I feel like Mr. EJ has injected some laughing gas, I think. You know, that helium gas. But I think there's a difference between laughing and smiling, right? I think laughing counts when you find something funny, and smiling is when you're legitimately happy and your heart is laughing, maybe. I'm in a bit of a rant. It's because of that coffee in the air. Okay? And let's go to the rating. So for versatility, this is appropriate for fall, winter, maybe cooler spring nights in UK. But here we don't have any spring. It's pretty much hot all year around, so only winter in Bangladesh. But if you're talking UK or any cooler countries, we can say spring, cooler nights, winter, and autumn. Strictly not for summer. Application, go 4 to 6 sprays. Do not overdo it. I think with this, less is more. And to some, 6 may sound a lot, but that's my average spray. That covers the versatility factor. So for versatility, I'm gonna give it 6.5. For smell, I'm giving it 10 because I haven't smelled a better coffee than this. And that beautiful left and right of coffee and leather, that's just absolutely gorgeous to me. So 10 for that. Smell wise, 10. Uniqueness, I'm gonna strip off some points here. I'm gonna go with 7 because people are going to make reference of the Tuscan leather, which kind of takes its originality away from it. So 7. So its overall rating goes to around 7.5. I'm gonna stretch it a little and say 8. In my world, it's a 10. But do let me know what you think of this, and have you tried this? And if you haven't, I strictly advise you, I absolutely urge you to get your nose on it, because this is an absolute beauty. That's all I have for you, and as always, the Frankenstein has spoken.